There is a number that nobody in the mainstream media wants to talk about right now. 3.2 million. That is the minimum number of ground troops military analysts say you would need to invade, occupy, and hold Iran. America's entire active duty military, every soldier, every Marine, every airman, totals around 1.3 million. Do that math again. You need 3.2 million. You have 1.3 million. And yet right now, as you are watching this video, reserve units across the United States are receiving letters telling them to prepare to deploy. Prediction markets where people bet real money, not opinions, real money, are showing massive bets on a ground invasion happening. One individual just placed $200,000 on it. If they are right, they collect over $1 million. People who place bets that size do not do it on gut feelings. They do it on information. And here is the thing that should make you stop and think. Pizza deliveries to the Pentagon have gone through the roof. That sounds like a joke. It is not. Intelligence analysts and historians have actually tracked this. When the Pentagon is running 20-hour days preparing a military operation, the pizza orders spike. The gay bars near DuPont Circle empty out because the planning staff are all at their desks. These are not coincidences. Something is being built. Something is being planned. And in this video, I am going to walk you through exactly what happens, not what the news tells you, not the optimistic version, not the pessimistic version, the structural, logical, game theory version of what a ground invasion of Iran actually produces, step by step. And by the end, I think you are going to see something that almost nobody is talking about, because this war, if it becomes a ground war, may not be a mistake. It may be the plan, and that is the most disturbing possibility of all. Let us start with the geography, because the geography is everything here, and most people have no idea what they are actually looking at when they look at Iran on a map. Iran is roughly 4 times the size of Iraq. Its population is 90 million people. But more important than the size is the shape of the terrain. On the western border, the side facing Iraq, which is the most obvious invasion route, you have the Zagros Mountain range. These mountains run from the northern border all the way down to the south, and they are not small hills. They are enormous, jagged, brutal terrain, the kind of terrain that has destroyed armies for thousands of years. Alexander the Great struggled with Persian terrain. The Mongols struggle with Persian terrain. Every empire that has tried to push through mountainous Iran has paid a catastrophic price. If American ground forces enter from Iraq, they immediately face this wall of mountains. And mountains, in modern warfare, do not favor the attacker. They favor the defender. Every ridge becomes a sniper position. Every valley becomes a kill zone. Every road through the mountains becomes a choke point where a handful of defenders can stop a column of thousands. Now look east. If you try to approach from Pakistan, you are crossing enormous deserts, starting from hundreds of miles away from Tehran, and you are doing it through terrain that provides zero cover, zero shade, and lethal heat. And from the south, from the Persian Gulf direction, you face more mountains and a very long overland march to the capital. There is no easy way in. The Iranians did not build their country this way on purpose, obviously, but they have spent 25 years building their military doctrine around exactly this geography. 25 years. Not 5, not 10. They have underground missile bases carved deep into mountain rock that American satellites cannot fully map. They have drone stockpiles in locations that have never been struck because they have never been revealed. In the weeks of airstrikes that have already happened, Iran has used only a fraction of its underground arsenal. One group of bases. There are many more that have not fired a single missile yet. So when the ground invasion begins, and this is the critical moment, Iran does not have to improvise. They have a plan they have been rehearsing for a quarter century. Here is how the first phase looks. American forces enter. In the first week, CNN and Fox will both be showing maps with big red arrows moving forward. Cities taken, bases destroyed. The initial momentum of American firepower is genuinely overwhelming. Nobody disputes that. America is very, very good at the first punch. The problem is every punch after that, because as the forces move deeper into Iranian territory, the supply lines stretch. And stretched supply lines in mountainous terrain are the single greatest vulnerability of any modern army. Every fuel truck becomes a target. Every ammunition convoy becomes a target. Every ammunition convoy becomes a target. Every helicopter. and helicopters are the lifeblood of mountain warfare logistics, becomes a target for Iranian air defense systems that have specifically been designed and positioned to destroy low-flying aircraft in exactly this kind of terrain. We have seen this story before: Vietnam, Afghanistan, Iraq. After the initial fall of Baghdad, America enters fast, America wins the opening phase, and then the country does not collapse the way the planners expected, and suddenly America is fighting a war it does not know how to exit. Iran has studied all three of those wars in extraordinary detail. Their military doctrine is essentially a manual built from American failures. But here's where the analysis gets more serious, because most people are thinking about this as a military problem. It is not only a military problem, it is an economic problem of civilizational scale. The moment a ground invasion begins, Iran's strategic calculation changes completely. At that point, they have nothing left to lose by escalating to their maximum capability. And their maximum capability includes one thing that changes everything: the Strait of Hormuz. 20% of all global oil passes through that strait. If Iran mines it, if Iran begins striking tankers systematically, if Iran coordinates simultaneous strikes on Gulf Cooperation Council oil infrastructure, and they have the missiles to do all of this, oil does not go to $150. It goes to $200, possibly higher. And I want to be very clear about what flows through that strait beyond oil, because most analysis stops at oil, and that is a mistake. Phosphate flows through there. Ammonium, sulfur, urea. These are the raw ingredients of agricultural fertilizer. Without fertilizer, crop yields collapse. Without crop yields, food prices explode globally. This is not about paying more at the gas pump. This is about whether farmers in Africa, in Southeast Asia, in South America can grow enough food to feed people. Helium flows through that strait. Sulfuric acid flows through it. Both are critical inputs in semiconductor manufacturing. If semiconductor production slows globally, the entire technology economy, the AI industry, the data center build-out, the cloud infrastructure, all of it starts to creak and buckle. JP Morgan has already stated publicly that at the current pace of disruption, the world could face an oil supply crisis within weeks, not years, weeks. The largest bank in America is saying that when they say it, it is not alarmism, it is a calculation. And the calculation produces something that most comfortable people in wealthy countries are not psychologically prepared for: a global depression, not a recession, a depression. Now here is where I want to ask you to do something uncomfortable. I want you to consider the possibility that this is not a mistake. Because when you follow the logic all the way to the end, not just the military logic, not just the economic logic, but the structural geopolitical logic, something strange emerges. When the Strait of Hormuz closes, when Middle Eastern oil stops flowing, when the GCC states are destabilized, the world still needs energy. It does not stop needing energy. It goes looking for energy somewhere else. And where is somewhere else? North America. The United States has massive oil reserves. Canada has the third largest proven oil reserves on Earth. Venezuela, which has just recently been brought significantly under American influence, holds the largest proven oil reserves of any country on the planet. If Middle Eastern supply collapses, the price of North American oil explodes upward. Europe, desperate for energy, comes to North America. Japan, South Korea, India, countries that have historically depended on Gulf oil, come to North America. And the United States, instead of being an empire that spends its money protecting everyone else's shipping lanes, becomes a resource exporting fortress that sells energy at premium prices to a world with no alternatives. This is not an accidental outcome, because at the same time this war is happening, American policy has been doing something very specific in its own neighborhood. Greenland, the Panama Canal, Canada, Venezuela, Mexico. These are not random provocations. These are the pieces of what some analysts are calling a self-sufficient continental bloc. A North America that has its own oil, its own food, its own water, its own manufacturing base, protected by two oceans, insulated from the global chaos that a Middle Eastern collapse would produce. While Europe runs out of energy and Asia scrambles for resources and the old global order fractures, North America sits behind its geography and its resource wealth and rebuilds itself on its own terms. The old American empire, the one built on Wall Street finance, on protecting everyone else's trade routes, on absorbing the cost of global stability, that empire has been running on fumes for years. $39 trillion in debt, manufacturing hollowed out, the middle class eviscerated, a political system so polarized it can barely function. That empire was already dying. The question was never whether it would end. The question was always who controls how it ends and what comes after. And so we arrive at the part of the analysis that I think is the most important and the least comfortable. Because if this strategic logic is correct, then the people who pay the price for this transition are not the architects of the strategy. They are never the architects. The Americans who get drafted and sent into the Zagros Mountains, the Iranians who have already been living under the weight of this conflict and will live under more, the families in the global south who will face food prices they cannot afford because fertilizer stopped flowing through a strait they have never seen on a map, the farmers in countries that have nothing to do with any of this geopolitical chess game. This is the pattern that repeats across every imperial transition in history. The powerful choose the moment of collapse and manage it to their advantage, and the ordinary people absorb the cost. That is not a cynical observation. It is just history reading itself out loud again. So what do you do with all of this? I think the first thing you do is stop accepting the framing that this is either a heroic mission or a catastrophic blunder. Both of those framings let you stop thinking. The reality is more structured and more cold than either of them. A ground invasion of Iran produces a specific set of outcomes, and those outcomes are not random. They follow from geography, from economics, from the logic of resource dependency, from the debt mathematics of the existing global financial system. Whether American forces succeed or get bogged down, the global order as it has existed since 1991 does not survive a full escalation in the Gulf. And from those ruins, something else gets built. The question worth asking, the question that actually matters, is not whether Trump is a genius or an idiot. It is who builds what comes next. And whether ordinary people anywhere on this earth have any say in that process at all. Think about that carefully and keep watching.